Welcome to the second presentation on the book Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs, Buddhist Psychology Manual of Prevention and Treatment. In this series, we discuss how the Buddhist psychology could be utilized in the areas of prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation, of course, because we know that, as discussed in the previous presentation also, we discussed that there is a gap in the treatment which the Buddhist psychology could fill the gap. So that is why any person involved in alcohol and drug prevention and treatment, a Buddhist priest, a Buddhist teacher, or a meditation master, so anyone who is interested in alcohol and drug prevention and treatment should follow actually what Buddhist psychology says about this prevention and treatment. Okay, so if you haven't watched the first episode, I invite you to watch it, because in that we discussed in length about the etiology of the substance use. If I share my screen with you, that okay, one moment. Yes. Hope you can see the screen. We discussed that day, the people use alcohol and drugs because they crave for using alcohol and drugs. That's craving. The demand created within the individual around alcohol, heroin, cannabis, tobacco, and other substances. The attractive image created around the substances. And we know that this demand is not natural. So that is the most important thing. As we discussed in the previous presentation also, we know that when we discuss about this alcohol prevention, treatment, drug problem in this world, we find solutions in two ways. One is the supply reduction, the other one is the demand reduction. And we are very used to use the term demand reduction. But then we come to a conclusion that this demand is probably natural. No, this demand is not natural at all. So that is why this is created. The demand is created. So how can we counteract this, or how can we neutralize this created demand? That is a very important part in prevention and treatment. So this demand is not natural, but created by the alcohol and tobacco industry and the drug mafia through various ways, propaganda, social learning, and various other things. So we discussed that day the word lobha. Lobha is the greed, one of the unwholesome roots, unskilled roots, or the akusala mula. And that day we discussed another two. What is that two? Dvesa and moha. Dosa means the ill will, anger. The moha is the ignorance, not having prajna or the wisdom, the moha, ignorance. So those are the root causes. So if you look at our thinking process, what is very important is to look at our thinking process. We have some positive thoughts, negative thoughts. In Buddhist psychology, it says the skillful thoughts, the wholesome thoughts, and the unskillful thoughts, or unwholesome thoughts. And in between, there are neutral thoughts also. When we go into depth of the Abhidharma, we learn about this kusala, akusala, and avyakruta also, another third category. But for the moment, let us see this akusala mula, the lobha, dosa, moha, as the, in our thoughts, are the reasons for people using alcohol and drugs. So if you haven't gone through the first session of this, I request you once again to look into that. So the craving is the tanha, or motivation for alcohol and drug consumption. This can be broadly explained through various other terms, but all comes under lobha, the greed, the desire, impulse, which that is called chanda. That is little bit different from the lobha. The desire, impulse, the wish. The desire can be for good things and bad things also. So to use alcohol, the desire, chanda, and deciding to use the adimokka. So all that is there. So desire. Then the holding, the upadana. The drug user holds the substance. But he thinks that the drug gun holds me. Oh, I am innocent. I have nothing to do because the drug came and holds me. It is not that. It is not the drug came and holds me. You holds the drug. So the responsibility of releasing it with you. That is why this understanding is extremely important. The affection, liking, the paymer, liking. The drug users not only use substances, but they love and adore the substances. Then the attachment, the adana, the bondage is created, the bondage, the bandhana. And this attractiveness, it comes with the moha, the ignorance, that is called manyuta towards the alcohol and drugs. So when thinking about designing a treatment plan or developing prevention strategies, it is essential to analyze how this craving for alcohol and drugs developed in the mind of a user. So if you look at the order, the substance is there, the availability is there. Sometimes people think that it is because of the availability. Things are there, that is why people are using. No, there are so many things available in this world, but we are only using, or our attention goes to the things that has an attractiveness for those things. So that is right. This attachment and craving. The most significant part of prevention and treatment is removing or eradicating this attachment, greed, or craving for substance use. So it is more a psychological thing than a biological thing. So that is what we discussed in our previous presentation. And we then came to understand the ummada meaning the psychological disorders, right? In Buddhism, the early Buddhist literature, some 2,500 years ago, introduced about 8 types of ummada. One is the kama ummada, the sexual dysfunction. Because of the greed and attachment, people develop some psychological disorders, ummada. Those are called the kama ummada, right? In alcohol and drug dependency, and you see this kama ummada part also. Then the krodha ummada, the anger, trauma, mania. So when they have a traumatic experience, we naturally think they go for substance use. But we have to look into that in detail, right? Krodha ummada there. Then there is darshana ummada, hallucinations. People get hallucinations even some 2,500 years ago. People had this. So the Buddhist psychology, the Buddha told that is darshana ummada. And then the moha ummada. Moha ummada, the mental retardation due to ignorance. So due to ignorance, we have developed certain mental disorders. So that is called moha ummada. Then the yaksha ummada, the demonic possession disorder, that is because of the fixed idea. So you create a demon. Even ultimately, the alcohol and drugs also created as demons, right? So we will come to that later. Then the pitta ummada, of course, the biological reasons for ummada or the disorders, mental disorders. And in that 8 disorders, the Buddha told about the sura ummada, the alcohol dependency. So we are happy to see now DSM-5 also talk about this SUDs, AUDs, alcohol use disorders. So some years back, the Buddha also mentioned this sura ummada, the alcohol dependency, and the vyasana ummada. Because of a certain traumatic experience, people develop some mental disorders, psychological disorders. So those are the things. So the we can look into the comorbidities and the conditions that are simultaneously present, the co-occurring disorders with AUD and SUD, like this, right? This is what we discussed that day, the Sura Ummada. But if you look at it, is sometimes we cannot directly take that Sura Ummada alone, but the Kama Ummada is there, the Krodha Ummada part is there, the Moha Ummada part is there, the Yaksha Ummada part is there. Vyasana Ummada also has some connection with that, and there is some biological reasons also. After long use of substances, the people develop certain brain difficulties also, the dysfunction of certain brain parts. So all that comes with that. So in a comprehensive manner, we have to look into this Sura Ummada, or the alcohol use disorder, or the substance use disorder. So, but we have to see the psychological nature of this. We can simply say, according to Buddhist psychology, this is a brain disease. Okay. So we look into that. Think about the gambling. A gambler, he also developed the same thing. We went through the DSM-5 identification of the compulsive gambling that day, very much similar to the alcohol criterias, or the drug criterias. Okay, then we are not overlooking the substance, that substance have no pharmacological impact on the brain. That has to be said. We will discuss later in the next presentation, probably in this, how alcohol react to the brain. It reacts as a depressant. But the problem is that after using alcohol, people react just as that they have taken a stimulant. That is the psychological part of it. Okay. Now let us come to the important point that we ended in the last discussion, the conventional wisdom. We cannot say always the conventional wisdom is the correct. At a certain time in our history, people thought that the earth was flat. So at that time, it was the conventional wisdom. And they had evidence also, enough of evidence to show that earth is flat. And in universities, that is what they taught. The earth is flat. But once Galileo and the group tried to introduce this, the world did not accept it then and there. So it took so many years to have the exact understanding. No, the earth is not flat, or it is round. The conventional wisdom of the commonplace or understanding of intoxicants in societies based on the belief that alcohol and other drugs have pharmacological effects on the brain that cause one to lose all inhibition. That is one part, not the euphoria. Now we are talking about inhibition and engaging in behaviors that are not possible when sober. We discussed that also last time. The general public and even the professionals in the medical and legal profession share this belief. After using alcohol, they don't know what they are doing. After using heroin, they don't know what they are doing. The impact is that they create a permissive environment for people to engage in not normal behavior or abnormal behaviors after using substances. If you want to go and scold the next door neighbor, you drink alcohol and go and blackguard that person. And next day, sometimes you go and say, sorry, I was under the influence of something, alcohol or drugs. So that person sometimes just pardon that behavior, saying, oh, he was under the influence. But it is not the thing. If you look at these things in detail, we see that they know very well what they are doing. Okay. After using alcohol, they know where to come, right? Then what to do. So all that, right? Although they come misbehaving, if they see a police officer or someone, all of a sudden they become very sober. How can that happen? Even at that time, they have the same amount of alcohol or the substance in his system, right? So these things, once again, we have to challenge the conventional wisdom and see. So Buddhist psychology helps us to challenge this conventional wisdom and see the reality of it. The moha is ignorance. Once to remove the moha, that you have to bring the wisdom, the prajna part to it, and see this with mindfulness, actually, with mindfulness. The mindfulness starts with the bare attention. without having any strings, without having any prejudgments, that we have to see the behavior as it is and try to generate the wisdom through that. Okay, so clear comprehensiveness, clear understanding, sampajanya, the prajna part of it in mindfulness. So these things that we have to think about. So the general public and even some professionals in the medical and legal profession also sometimes believe this conventional wisdom. Hence, an individual depend on the drugs or alcohol tends to receive less blame than their sober counterparts, decidedly an advantage to the alcohol and drug user. This general belief also creates a permissive environment in the family and the neighborhood and the community, allowing individuals the freedom to behave irresponsibly. Okay, so those things that we have to think about. But we have to see these expectancies. There were many researches done throughout about these expectancies. The Sean has in 1980, far back in 1980, analysis of the findings reveal, the Sean's findings reveal certain common global expectations like social or physical pleasure, assertiveness, relaxation, or tension reduction are the results of this substance use or alcohol use. But we have to very carefully question these things once again. Then the Christian Goldman and Ian investigated alcohol experience among adolescents and listed 6 factors associated with association, alcohol. So now we are looking at this conventional wisdom. So that is what they are, right? During the time when people thought that the earth is flat, if you do a research and ask people, what are your beliefs and ideas about the earth, they might say, it is flat. Earth is flat, because it was the conventional wisdom. So these things are recorded about alcohol and drugs. Even you can ask people, right? Ask your friends, why do you use alcohol? They come up with various ideas, but in the light of this Buddhist psychology, we are going to see that that is not actually the chemical properties of the substances. According to the survey, the most common expectations of the alcohol were that it was a magical transforming agent and that it aids in the reduction of tension or diversion from worries. So this is the conventional wisdom. There were also the widespread tendency to view alcohol as a substance with the potential to increase power of aggression, increase social and physical pleasure, and bring about the modification of social and emotional behavior. These expectations were common among users of the other drugs also, such as heroin, cocaine, as well. The findings of the study showed that alcohol or drug use was generally viewed as a positive activity, not only by the users, but by larger number of the non-users as well. There is a tendency among young people to initiate and continue alcohol and drug use, believing that it has this positive effect. So that is the conventional wisdom. In Buddhist psychology, this is called ditti. This is called ditti. Ditti is another mental concomitant or a mental factor out of 52 mental factors that we discuss. Then this is the wrong view, or more correctly say the michya ditti, the wrong view. So when we say call ditti, we have to think about always it is about the wrong view, the michya ditti. So individuals have wrong views or wrong attitudes, ditti, about alcohol and drugs, which comes with the conventional wisdom. That is what they have learned about alcohol and drugs. They learn it from their parents, they learn it from adults, they learn it from alcohol industry propaganda, they learn it from drug mafia, they learn it from the peers, the wrong notions about alcohol and drugs, and they hold a view about substances. So, substance users do not know about substances. That is what I always say. They don't know about heroin. If they know about heroin, they don't use it. The People who are using alcohol actually they don't know about alcohol. If they know about alcohol, they won't use it. So their literacy is less. They are ignorant about the substance and their substance use. They are illiterate about substance. They haven't looked at substance through wisdom, the prajna. They just were gullible and just absorb what the conventional wisdom says. And with wise attention, so we have to have this word, the wise attention, the yoniso manasikara. In Buddhist psychology, that we train people to have this yoniso manisakara, that is the wise attention. Then only they find what they have learned about alcohol and substance, heroin, tobacco, are actually the myths, or those are wrong notions. They haven't had the opportunity to look at alcohol and drugs through penetrative understanding. That is the problem. With that understanding, penetrative understanding, in the process of prevention and treatment, they have to unlearn. So what happened? They have learned about something, about alcohol and drugs, the wrong learning. Now they have to unlearn what they have wrongly learned about alcohol and drugs. So that is a part of the treatment process, and it is a component in the prevention process also. For that you have to have the yoniso manasikara. At the same time, there should be someone to explain that also. Either they have to read a book, they have to listen a video like this, or they have to, with a good friend who can explain this, they have to listen to that. But just listening won't take them anywhere, but they have to have the wise attention, the yoniso manasikara, when in combining the kalyana mitata yoniso manasikara, only that is the good friend, or parata gosha. Parata gosha is the voice from outside. Someone should tell it, parata gosha and the yoniso manasikara. Combining that, we can have that understanding. But that is only the listening to that. Then they have to concentrate on that. They have to reflect on that. That is another level of understanding. After that, they gain understanding to practice. So there are, even in wisdom, there are different levels. Okay, given these widely prevalent attitudes towards alcohol and drugs, one may understand that the initiation of alcohol and drug use can be arrested only if the majority of the community can see the total experience of substance use as harmful, useless, and unpleasant. So we have to, with this penetrative understanding, with the yoniso manasikara, the wise attention, they will understand that drug use is harmful and useless, purposeless, and unpleasant. Those involved in prevention efforts must analyze and learn how the forces that promote alcohol and drug use make it appear attractive. So that is the thing. So in the process, that we have to understand how people identified alcohol and substance actually attractive. They must also know how these influences on the individual could be counteracted. So there are forces that create this wrong notion. The demand create the wrong, the demand created demand, and at the same time, how to counteract this. So prevention practitioners, the treatment practitioners, must understand how to counteract this, how to neutralize this created demand. In taking steps towards the prevention of alcohol and drug use, another essential point to note is how the influence of alcohol and drug based on expectation may vary from person to person. The drug expectancies also vary from person to person. For example, the cannabis experience, the way the people behave in Los Angeles may not the same the way the people behave after using cannabis in, say, in Colombo or Delhi or some places. So culturally, there are different characteristics in these things. Okay, now we come to a very important point, the alcohol expectancies. patana or apekka. What one gets, what one expects. Our expectations toward the alcohol and other drugs. Broadly defining, alcohol expectancies are so when I say alcohol expectancies, you can add the drug expectancies also. They are the shared beliefs concerning alcohol that exist in society, in the conventional wisdom. Individuals develop a view or a position, a ditti, once again. So they hold a view or a position about alcohol, which are the cognitive, affective, and behavioral outcomes that an individual expect to occur following the use of alcohol. So the T comes with this cognitive, affective, and behavioral outcomes. The T. So once I use this, this will happen. So this is my view on this. That is called the Ditti. When it is in the right side, we call it Samma Ditti, and it is nothing but the Prajna, the wisdom. Panya, wisdom. But now when we say Ditti, it is, as I explained earlier also, this is the wrong notion, the wrong view, the Micha Ditti. According to Buddhist psychology, these expectancies are explained as Pattana or Apekka. So these developed expectancies in Buddhist psychology, they are called the Pattana, what you expect, what you think about, what you expect, and Apekka, expectations. Pattana in taking alcohol is nothing but a form of greed for that substances. So it is very clearly the text say, Buddhist text say, Pattana is a part of lobha. Once I get this, once I use the substance, I get this. The positive side, the Pattana. Pattana in taking alcohol is nothing but this form of greed. Just as expectancies vary from person to person, the nature of the expectancies vary depending on the context also. Now, in one context, you don't have the expectation to use alcohol, but in another context, you have expectancies. Though expectancies change according to the context also. Any expectancies could influence and reinforce the behavior of the individual. So, alcohol expectancies or drug expectancies refer to the beliefs, perceptions, and anticipations that individuals have about the effects of alcohol on their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. These expectancies can play a significant role in shaping an individual's alcohol-related decisions and behaviors, including their patterns of alcohol consumption and the consequences of the drinking. So this patthana, these expectancies, this apekha are nothing but a form of lobha, the form of greed. If we analyze, we can see that. Okay, as stated by Marlett, this is not Andrew Marlett, sorry, I think I once referred it as Andrew Marlett. It is Alan Marlett. The expectations could motivate individuals to use alcohol by reinforcing its effects. Alcohol expectancies are rooted in the expectations of the alcohol user, a complex biopsychosocial construct. It is a complex biopsychosocial construct. So the T is a complex biopsychosocial construct, that mental factor. According to the expectancy theory, alcohol-related expectancies are the intention between alcohol, the environment, and the person. The theory states that people tend to consume higher quantities of alcohol when their expectancies of it are positive, as influenced by the environment in which they live. So now we are trying to compare Buddhist psychological approach with the Western psychology, the expectancy theory. So according to the Goldman, the effects of alcohol are determined more by the learned expectations of alcohol than by the biochemistry of substances. There are evidence. In 1990, this came into limelight. Goldman defined alcohol expectancy as information that reflect the reinforcement value of alcohol stored in the mind as memory templates that can later influence alcohol use. The cognitive nodes. So the physical part, the biological part of is that. So later on, we will see the cognitive restructuring, we are going to discuss with that. So anyway, this is ultimately the mindset, how people think, the thinking process, the cognitive functionings are there. The data thus stored could be taken several forms, including language-based details such as words, phrases, statements related to alcohol, and other forms of information that are not language-based also. So, for example, when I say heroin, different set of words come to your mind. For a drug user, heroin user, pleasure, relax. So that kind of words, the circuit completes on connecting those nodes. But person with the right view, the nodes connected like, the unpleasant, then unattractive. So those are the nodes get connected. So the expectancies are recorded in our mindset. So according to the Goldman, the effects of the alcohol, learned expectations of alcohol and biochemistry of the substance. He defines alcohol expectancy as information that reflect the reinforcement value of alcohol stored in the mind as memory template that can later influence alcohol use. The data thus stored could take several forms, including language-based details such as words, phrases, statement related to alcohol and other forms. Marlett and Rancho state that many of the effects of alcohol are the results of individual expectations rather than the pharmacological effects of the substance. So even in this Western psychology, the Marlett and Rancho in 1980 stated that the effects of alcohol, so we can think about the drugs also in the same manner, are the results of individual expectations rather than the pharmacological effects of the substance. This is especially true of occasions on which the alcohol is consumed in small quantities also. So the Dark and Goldman conduct an experiment to measure the effects of alcohol on two groups of subjects, one of which was given the actual drug, the drug treatment group, and the other was given the placebo, non-drug group, and led to believe that the placebo was actual alcohol. Scores were given to each group based on the extent to which subjects showed the effects of the substance they had consumed. When compared, the scores of both groups showed very little difference. In another study, a sample of university students was divided into two groups. One was given the substance that closely resembled alcohol but contained no alcohol, and the other was given actual alcohol. It was observed that both groups of students showed similar behavior regardless of whether or not they had consumed alcohol. So this was reported by McAndrew and the Iggarton in 1969. So this kind of researchers were coming. People were given saying alcohol, but it was not alcohol, right? Same taste. So I request you to observe. Even in YouTube, you can say, just type the bar lab experiment on alcohol expectations. Then that slot comes, and you can see how psychologically people tend to behave, believing that they used alcohol, but actually there was no alcohol, but this euphoric effects and most of the other expected effects came to operation. So we can think about all these things. So we know that people have different kind of expectations. Like if you ask, why do you use alcohol? Then they come up with various reasons, like for forgetting problems, for ease tiredness, the weariness, to fun, enjoyment. Then sometimes they say it enhances creativity after using cannabis. It helps to improve the creativity, for being macho or daring, okay, to show off, for warmth when it is very cold. It increases appetite, then the symbol of sophistication. So those are the expectancies in the general population about alcohol. But if you analyze one by one, which we are going to do now, and we see that individuals completely get the opposite of what they expect. That the chemical effect is completely opposite of what they expect, the pharmacological effect. So that is why we have to look into how these wrong notions are developed, how this ditti is developed. Then you have to bring wisdom, the panya, to erase, unlearn those wrong learnings. It is a very important part in prevention as well as in treatment. The unlearning process, unconditioning process. Unlearn what you have learned wrongly about alcohol and drugs. And to have a penetrative understanding and to see the reality of the substance. What are the exact effects? What are the right effects of the substance? So that is very important in prevention and treatment. So most of these above studies reveal that motivation to consume or not to consume alcohol or other drugs in a given individual at a specific time and place very much depend on the expectancy, that is patana or apekka, according to Buddhist psychology, that the individual holds concerning alcohol and drugs. The expectancies of alcohol could therefore be considered the most critical factor in determining the final pathway to alcohol consumption. This is very same even in other drug consumptions. Though the expectancies that control the individual influence alcohol use are shared among all alcohol users, these expectancies, unlikely many uncontrollable factors, could be modified and changed. So the good message is we can modify these expectations. So that is a part of the prevention and treatment. Thus, the prevention of alcohol dependence should be geared towards challenging and changing the positive outcome expectancies or wrong cognition of alcohol, that is challenging the wrongly held ditti and challenging the michya ditti and establish the samma ditti, the right view, from wrong view to right view, from wrong view to right view. How can we come from wrong view to right view? There are many cognitive exercises, the tools introduced in Buddhist psychology for anyone to come from the wrong view to the right view. The penetrative understanding, the vipassana model, the mindfulness practices, and certain sutras shed light on this subject. They introduce various methods of unlearning what they have wrongly learned throughout the past. So now here, let us come to the word or the Buddhist analysis of the distortion, perversion of alcohol and drug expectancies, the perversion, the distortion of alcohol and drug expectancies. Why they have the wrong notions about alcohol. So the people consume alcohol and drugs because they believe that alcohol and drug use are beneficial and pleasurable, and they evoke positive effects such as forgetting problems, relieving tiredness, giving courage and confidence, and many more. These are nothing but distorted view. So we call it ditti vipallasa. You can see here, distorted view, distorted view, distorted view is this ditti vipallaso. So that is a ditti vipallasa of the substance. When someone uses alcohol or drugs, they wrongly perceive that they are enjoying or they are forgetting problems, then that is tiredness. And these are the perverted perceptions or perverted, distorted perceptions, and that is called sanya vipallasa. So distorted view, wrong view, that is ditti vipallasa. Then the wrong perceptions also you can get. The wrong perceptions, that is called sanya vipallasa. Then they create an attractive image and positive thinking pattern around alcohol, which is an elaboration upon perception, a perverted distortion or distortion thought, chitta vipallasa, or on alcohol consumption. So now the Buddhist psychology introduced three types of distortions, three types of wrong understandings. So one is the ditti vipallasa, the distorted view, and then the Sanya Vipallasa, the distorted perception or perverted perception, and finally the distorted or perverted thought. That is called Chitta Vipallasa. So the Buddhist analysis of someone using substance because of craving. So we come to that. How this craving is created, how this attractiveness is created, unless and until we go to the cause, why it is craving. The etiologically we saw the reason is craving, this is the attractiveness, reason is the bondage created, reason is the pema, adana, bandhana. But why is this craving is created? Why? So always we have to go to the cause. Once you eradicate the cause, only that you can eradicate the effects of that. So now we come to understand the Buddhist psychological methodology, Buddhist psychological concepts called the distorted view, distorted perception, distorted thoughts. That is, please get familiar with the Pali words also. This distortion or perversion is called Vipallasa. Vipallasa. So there are three types of Vipallasa. The Ditti Vipallasa. Now you are familiar with Ditti. You know what is Ditti, the wrong view. Then the Sanya Vipallasa, the perception. We get wrong perception, Sanya Vipallasa. And the Chitta Vipallasa, that is the thought. Chitta is thought or the mind. So the distorted mind or distorted thought. Correctly, the distorted thought. So these are the three vipallasas which leads to the craving, wrong understanding about substances. So distortion of thought, chitta vipallasa, concern the next higher level of the mental processing when we think about or ponder things in our mind. When we think in our mind, the chitta vipallasa comes. The mind tends to elaborate upon perception with these thought patterns. So it get a signal, the sanya, and the mind get elaborate on that. So we will learn about it. So the Buddhist cognitive science, Buddhist cognitive psychology. Right. There's a part of Buddhist psychology. So the mind tends to elaborate upon perception with the thought patterns. And if our thoughts are based upon distortions of perception, then they too will be distorted. Eventually, such thought patterns can become habitual and evolve into distortions of the view, ditti vipallasa. So these ditti vipallasa, sanya vipallasa, and chitta vipallasa, distorted view, distorted perception, distorted thoughts, all are interrelated. All are interrelated. Okay, they work together. One promotes the other. That promotes the another one of the three. So likewise, it develops up to a dependency. It develops up to a addiction level. The severity increases day by day because they combinedly work together and enhance or increase the levels of the vipallasa. So that is the thing. All three works together to build the cognitive system that wrongly identify that alcohol and drug use is fun and beneficial. So that is the ultimate, the fun and beneficial means the craving, the lobha, the attachment, the pema, adana, bandhana. So that is there. So we know, now we understood three things. That is distorted perception, the sanya vipallasa, the way the individual wrongly recognize and perceive the world. So that is called sanya. Sanya is you get the signal. Now, sometimes in a party, when the whiskey bottle or alcohol bottle just taken and kept on the table, people become happy and elated. The people become happy and elated just at the mere sight of the bottle. They haven't used it. How does that happen? I'm once again telling, just at the mere sight of the unopened bottle, the people become happy and elated. That they are taking the signal, the sanya. So that is the sanya vipallasa. Okay? Because they are trained to look at it in that manner. So that is the sanya vipallasa. Getting the wrong signal. Then they get wrong signals. The signal of the sanya of fun, pleasure, right? The sanya of adulthood. Once I use substance, I become an adult. Now I am no more a child now. I am an adult. So that symbol, the symbolic meaning that take, the symbol of relaxation, the sanya of relaxation, or the perception of relaxation, right? All these are mind-made. So the distorted perception, sanya vipallasa, the way the individual wrongly recognize and perceives the world. So that is called sanya vipallasa. They are wrong perception. Then the distorted thought, chitta vipallasa, the way the individual wrongly think about the world. Their thinking is wrong. That is akusala thoughts or wrong thoughts are there. Then the distortion of the view, the ditti vipallasa, individual's wrong attitude and beliefs about the world. That is called ditti vipallasa. So this can be applied to the alcohol and tobacco scene as well. Individuals develop most psychological problems and disorders due to those distortions, vipallasa. Most of the interpersonal, intrapersonal, and intergroup conflicts occur due to this sanya vipallasa, ditti vipallasa, and chitta vipallasa. Perversions are developed in the human mind. These perversions limit one's thinking and reject reality, distancing one from reality. So these perversions actually distance ourselves from the reality. Now, they have a wrong notion about substances. So sanya vipallasa, ditti vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, right? Okay. Now we can see the strongness of the level of the distortion, vipallasa, how they influence. The strongest is the ditti vipallasa, then the chitta vipallasa, then the sanya vipallasa. But users might become so convinced that alcohol use is pleasurable and beneficial that no amount of evidence to the contrary from their own eyes or reason, no the advice of others will shake their beliefs and assumptions. Many individuals are stuck in the mistaken view about alcohol and drugs. So people are stuck in the mud. They are stuck in this wrong wrong perceptions, wrong thinking, wrong understanding, vipallasas. Right. Let us examine the perverted or distorted view. Ditti vipallasa, part of the positive outcome expectancy is the individual wrongly hold and reality of the ditti vipallasa. What is the reality? What is the wrong? So we know alcohol helps to forget problems. Now that is a ditti vipallasa. Ultimately, they come to the notion that alcohol helps to forget problems. But now with the benefit to understanding, with clear comprehension, right, with the unbiased observation, if we examine that, we see the problems aggravate and new issues arise. Now even the treatment centers where I worked, sometimes people say, I think I mentioned this earlier also, I used heroin because I had a lot of problems. Now I asked them what has happened to the problems. And I further asked them, have you ever seen a person? I'm asking this from you also. Have you ever seen a person? Suppose he had about 20 problems. Now he started using heroin. Now what happened to his problems? Have you seen anyone who reduced it to, say, from 20 to now only he has 10 problems after start using heroin? No, you never will see such a person. The person who had 20 problems, now the number of problems also increase, the gravity of the problem also increase, and new problems arises because of the substance use. But the general notion, the normal notion is what? Oh, it helps to forget problem. Heroin use is helpful for to forget problems. No, the problems aggravate and new problems arise. Now, another one. It helps to eat tiredness. To relax, people use alcohol. So this is the wrong notion. But if you examine what will happen, the tiredness increases and there are difficulties in sleep and resting also. Their sleeping get disturbed after using heroin, after using alcohol. Once they go for sleeping, they don't get a good sleep, right? This rapid eye movement, REM stage, they never reach the REM stage when the system has alcohol or heroin, because they have to remove that. So the system, the metabolic rate goes up. Quite a lot of metabolism occur in the system. So they become actually tiredness increase and they become actually restless. So complete opposite of what they expected. Then alcohol use is pleasurable and it evokes happiness. So that is a normal notion. The general people think, why do you use substance? Because it gives a kick, high. But once you examine, you will see the experience is unpleasant and it is boring and it impairs happiness. Alcohol impairs happiness. Drug use impairs happiness. So that is a reality. Anyone can see that. And we are going to look into that quite soon. Then alcohol helps to relax. That actually alcohol increase the tension, and it is once your system has alcohol, it is difficult to relax because the body has to work very fast. The metabolism take place to remove that alcohol, to turn that alcohol to other components like alcohol dehydrogenase enzyme works and try to break it into aldehydes, ketones, ultimately the acids and carbon dioxide and water. So likewise, the metabolism, quite a lot of metabolism take place. So they can't relax. The body works. Alcohol use increase self-confidence. They think once we use alcohol, the self-confidence increase. But ultimately, what happened? They lose their confidence and their self-confidence fade away and they become dependent on that substances. Quite opposite what they expect. So now you can see that the Ditipallasa, the wrong views, perverted views about the alcohol, wrong expectations, and correct view, that you have to have that correct view through wisdom, panya, in Sanskrit, prajna. So people hold certain wrong expectations about alcohol. There are so many other things. It enhances sexual ability, but actually we know every drug, even including alcohol, decreases the sexual abilities. It is not enhancing, but decreasing. Sometimes people have a wrong notion, oh, this is a chemical dependence. But later on, they will find, with their inspection, they will find dependency is mostly the psychological dependence, and it can be stopped because people have a wrong notion. Now I am a user, I can't stop. No, everything is changing, everything is impermanent, everything is anicca. So your addiction is also anicca, your dependency is also anicca. You can change, you can get out of the substance use. So in that way, we can see the vipallasas. No, normally that we don't challenge these things. So the challenging the expectancies, challenging this wrongly held vipallasa is a component, a part of our treatment. So mostly in our, in our motivational interviewing, that we can take up these matters very easily. So in our treatment systems, and we train our counselors to combine these facts, these things also into the motivational interviewing, and we see good results. We see relapse rate is reducing very much. Evidence are there. So later on we can discuss. So let us look into more Buddhist psychology to learn this vipallasa. What are distortions? What are vipallasa? The Vipallasa Sutra, there is a very good sutra in Anguttara Nikaya, explain 3 levels of perversions operating in 4 modes. 3 vipallasas operating in 4 modes. What are these 4? 3. What are the 4 modes? Now, I know that many of you are not very familiar with Pali, but just pardon me and try to listen to this, because later on you will get familiar. When you have the real interest in the Buddhist psychology, you learn these things, okay? And the interest come eventually. And once we really read things through Pali, you get the real understanding, because sometimes it is very difficult to translate and get a right meaning. Chattaro bhikkave sanya vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, ditti vipallasa. Katame chattaro. Chattaro means 4. Bhikkave means the bhikshus, the monks. Okay? So, what are the chattaro bhikkave sanya vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, ditti vipallasa. Katame chattaro. So, that means there are 4. Okay? Monks, there are these 4 pervasions of perception, pervasion of mind, pervasion of view. Which 4? That is a translation, right? Now Buddha told, Anicce bhikkave niccanti, sanya vipallaso, chitta vipallaso, ditti vipallaso. What does that mean? Anicca, people take impermanent so as permanent. This is sanya vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, ditti vipallasa. In all 3 levels, people start, recognizing or having the wrong notion, the things which are impermanent as nicca. Nicca means the permanent, right? The Buddhist psychology, one of the characteristics in Buddhist psychology is this principle of impermanence. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing. Later on, we will go into this in detail. So, Anicce bhikkave niccanti sanya vipallaso, chitta vipallaso, ditti vipallaso. So that is one way of pervasion. There are 4 types. How it happens. The Anguttara Nikaya, Vipallasa Sutra explains this. Then, dukke bhikkave sukhanti sanya vipallasa, chitta vipallasa, ditti vipallasa. What is that? Dukke bhikkave sukhanti. The suffering, things are really suffering, they understand it as pleasurable. Good example is alcohol use or substance use. Actually, after using alcohol, they are suffering. But what they perceive, they have the perception as sukha. Sukha means pleasurable. Or they have the mindset of sukha, the thoughts that it is pleasurable. Or the ditti, the view that it is pleasurable. So this is vipallasa. Then anattani bhikkave attati sanya vipallaso. So things are anatta is another important concept, but here the direct translation is self. With the self, with regard to the non-self, is a pervasion of perception, pervasion of mind, pervasion of view. So there is people thought that there is an entity which is not changing. That is called Atma, Atta. But according to Buddhist psychology, there is no Atta or Atma. It is Anatma. Quite opposite of that. It is also linked to the impermanence. The non-self concept of non-self. There is no person. Little bit advanced to understand that. But there are ways to understand this. Okay? So finally, the Ashubhe bhikkave subhanti. Sanya vipallaso, chitta vipallaso, ditti vipallaso. That means, now let us come to the English terms of this. First thing is anicca to nicca. The constant about the inconsistent is a pervasion of perception, a pervasion of mind, a pervasion of being. What is that? Buddhist concept of impermanence. Things are not constant, but changing. Anicca. In Pali, in Sanskrit, it is anitya. Anitya. In Pali, anicca. So they see the inconsistent things or the impermanent thing as permanent. Then the pleasant about the stressful is a perversion of perception, a perversion of mind, a perversion of view. Of course, you will agree if someone thinks when something is suffering and if someone thinks it is enjoyment, so that there is a perversion, no? There is a wrong notion, the perversion, distortion. The difficult one, the self with regard to the non-self is a perversion of perception, perversion of mind, perversion of view. Let us see how this related to substance use. Then the attractive about unattractive is a perversion of perception, a perversion of mind, perversion of view, perversion of perception. It is a sanya vipallasa, it is a chitta vipallasa, it is a ditti vipallasa. So this comes in the Anguttara Nikaya, one of the books that explain sutra, and the name of the sutra is Vipallasa Sutra. Vipallasa Sutra, the sutra on distortion, okay, or sutra on perversion. So that can be translated in that manner. Now, if we apply this to, alcohol and drug use, these are the 4 perversions of perception, perversion of mind, perversion of view. Vipallasa Sutra, translated by Pali, translated from Pali by Thanissaro Bhikkhu. This is the translation which I have given. The blue ones are my explanations, but the white one I got from this translation from the Vipallasa Sutra. So after giving the due respect to the translator, Bhikshu Thanissaro, Venerable Bhikshu Thanissaro, I am quoting this. About alcohol and drugs, the prevention could be easily understood by applying the individual's positive expectations of alcohol and drugs according to the Vipallasa Sutra. The Buddha explained Vipallasa Sutra to help the beings attain the final liberation. So if we want to attain the final liberation, if we want to come out of the suffering, that you have to get out of these vipallasas, the supreme bliss of Nibbana. However, the formula could be used to detach someone's bondages to substance at mundane level, the Nirodha from the alcohol and drugs. So the Buddha told this about the higher level of Nirodha from suffering. But we can use this in mundane form to release someone's mind, to liberate someone's mind from the bondage to alcohol and drugs, to eradicate the craving from alcohol and drugs. Okay, individuals think consumption of alcohol and drugs bring permanent solutions, and these substances are naturally and in true nature they provide sound effects, good effects. They further think alcohol and drugs can produce positive effects that they expect, such as giving courage, relieving anxiety, or easing tiredness. But in reality, alcohol and drugs such as heroin and cannabis cannot offer these effects as an inherent quality of those substances. So those are not the pharmacology. People think this is permanently in the substance, permanently it is there in the substance, pharmacological effects, but that is only a perversion. So what they actually get from substance is quite the opposite of what they expected. We have seen that. Therefore, they are inconsistent with the expectations of nature. Identifying and considering anicca alcohol as nature is a distortion, vipallasa, and this realization will help someone to liberate his attachment. They can get the nirodha, they can liberate their mind from substances. So realizing and deeply understanding the impermanence of alcohol and other substances is central to the path of liberation from those substances. This insight will help practitioners reduce attachment, aversion, and ignorance of alcohol and other drugs. So if we practice we will discuss how to practice this, but this is the theoretical part. So if they can get out of this vipallasa of understanding anicca, alcohol as nicca, the wrong perception, wrong view, wrong mindset, or the wrong thoughts, then they can achieve the liberation. They can set their mind liberated from alcohol and drugs. Okay, good. The second one is easier than the first one to understand. So when using alcohol and drugs, what individual really feel is unpleasant. That unpleasant is suffering or dukkha. Now we are using the word, we are coming to the word dukkha. Please remember, in Buddhist psychology, always we talk about dukkha. Dukkha is translated to English as suffering. But that the word suffering is not enough to explain the real meaning of dukkha. So please try to understand and let us use the word dukkha quite often than saying suffering, because the suffering gives only a limited meaning to dukkha. When asked about alcohol, heroin, or cannabis experience and how it feels to various body parts separately, they mostly report as follows. So even that was my practice when I work with the substance users, heroin users, cannabis users, alcohol users, right? I ask, how did you really feel? How did you really feel after using heroin? Right? Then they can't sometimes come to or arrive at a answer. So then I ask, how did it feel in your head? How did it feel in your body? How did it feel in your mouth? How did it feel in your stomach? Then they start thinking about it. Now here, they have to have this unbiased attention. Okay? They have to, initially, that training should be given to look at something objectively without biases and not attaching anything. Okay? So this is actually looking at alcohol and drug use experience mindfully. This is where the mindfulness comes. We have to ask the substance user to look at how he felt the substance use experience or feeling with bare attention. Bare attention, without having any biases, influences, conditioning, or prejudgment. This is not what we normally do. Normally, we don't, our attention is very biased. We look at objects with learnings, memory, added subjective judgments, and self-interest. Now, we have to, the mindfulness, the very basic of mindfulness training is giving training to look at objectives openly. We have our preconceived notions about the objects that we are noticing. But with a little training, we can ask the substance user to examine his perceptions and feelings mindfully with bare attention. So for that we have to, give them some exercises before on mindfulness practices. That breathing practice is very good. Later on, we are discussing that, to have the bare attention on the object. Now we ask, have the bare attention, look at mindfully, how did you feel the experience, the alcohol experience, drug experience, heroin experience, cannabis experience, even the stimulants, methamphetamine experience in head. They report little pain in the head, headache, heavy-headedness, rotating feeling, drowsy. So those are the things they report. And then the body, decline in energy and liveliness, impaired coordination, imbalance, a warmth, flushing of the skin, especially with heroin, itchiness, becomes slow, the mouth bitter, the beer is bitter, if you look at, dry mouth, the stomach, nausea, vomiting. None of these feelings are pleasurable. So after having alcohol, after having heroin, after having cannabis, any opiates, right? Even the stimulants, This is how they feel, because even when we take a stimulant, the body tries to reject it first of all, okay? Because the body only accepts things like carbohydrate, protein, lipids, and water, some vitamins. Other than every other things, the body rejects. So that rejection of the body comes as a pain and suffering, mostly, if you observe carefully. So now we can see all the above symptoms are nothing but pain and suffering. Although individuals crave and chase after alcohol and drugs, their real nature is pain and suffering. However, on most occasions, people report they feel pleasure from alcohol and drug use. And this is vipallasa explained under the second category of vipallasa. What is the second category of vipallasa? Now let us go and see the second category of vipallasa. Second category of vipallasa is when is that, let us look at it. The pleasant about the stressful is a perversion. So they perceive the pleasant about the stressful is a perversion of perception, a perversion of mind, a perversion of view. Let us go to the Pali also. Dukke bhikkave sukanti sukanti. Dukkha as sukha. Sukha is pleasure. Dukke bhikkave sukanti. What is that? Sanya vipallaso, distortion of the perception. Chitta vipallaso, distortion of the mind. And ditti vipallaso, distortion of the view. So we can understand this. So if you apply that to the substance use, we can see the people perceive unpleasant, boring, uninteresting substance use as pleasurable, beneficial. So that is a vipallasa. And in Dhammanupassana, we are going to see how people get these wrong notions. How they get this wrong notion. That is what we are going to learn laterly. Okay. So we saw the actual alcohol and drug experience is unpleasant even at the optimum level. Alcohol and drugs impairs happiness. Alcohol and drug use is nothing but a suffering and pain. So recently we launched a campaign, national-wide campaign, saying any drug use is suffering and pain. Then only they started looking at it and understand. Although we thought it is pleasurable, it is only a vipallasa or a distortion, distorted view, distorted thought, distorted perception. Actually, it is unpleasant. So people can understand that. We can unlearn what we have wrongly learned. But for that, we need some right interventions. Okay, now let us look at this little bit carefully with this, in mindfulness practices, in Satara Satipatthana, there is one area called the Vedananupassana, the feeling, contemplating on the feeling of alcohol experience. That you can do it adjattika or baijja. That means you can think about your experience, or you can think about any other person's experience. Later on, especially for the young people, we tell them to observe when someone using alcohol, how he behaves. Look at his face. Although initially the face looked happy, but when the glass comes near the mouth, you can see the cues in the face. The eyes become smaller, right? The face expressions, which shows actually it is unpleasant. It is unpleasant. Observe it and see next time, please. So then only that you can have the knowledge of practice, the knowledge of reflection, knowledge of hearing, the wisdom of practicing. Right? Later on, we will look into that. So observing the feelings with mindfulness, present, past, we can think ajattika bahijja. Ajattika means you can think about yourself, or you can think of any other person. Bahijja, external, internal or external, present or past. Now, how the exact alcohol feeling, the heroin feeling in the nose. Nose is the Pali term is ghana, nose. Stinky, strong aroma. So when you get a strong aroma, stinky, you don't say it is sukha. Okay, it is dukkha, domanassa. Domanassa is also the same thing. Unpleasantness, suffering. Dukkha and domanassa. That is the reality. How we can classify? Is it pleasurable, or is it suffering, or unpleasurable, or neutral? So mostly it is not pleasurable. The tongue, jivha, and to the kaya, part of the kaya is jivha also there, jivha. Bitter, what you feel is bitter. The beer is bitter. Next time when it happened for you to drink beer, just concentrate on the bitter part of it. This is what I also did some 30, 40 years back. Okay. So concentrating on that bitter, then you understand, hey, this is bitter. There is no pleasure. Why should I drink this bitter beer? So likewise, the insight comes to you. Right. Then the head, little pain in head, headache, heavy-headedness, rotating feeling, drowsy. So this is not pleasurable. This is dukkha or domanassa. Okay. And if anyone look at the body after using alcohol, heroin, or other drugs, right, with bare attention, without any biases, without any prejudgment, what he only feels: decline in energy and liveliness, impaired coordination, unbalance, warm flushing of the skin, especially with the heroin, itchiness, and they become very slow in their actions, right? So they feel depression within themselves. So nothing of these characteristics are pleasurable, sukha. So all that is also dukkha and the domanassa. Once you feel that, you feel unhappiness. So just as that, if you look at the stomach, the tummy area, they feel the nausea, the vomitish feeling. So that is also dukkha or domanassa. So now we have seen the reality, but although they actually perceive after using heroin or any other substances, what they really feel is something unpleasant, uh, something we can say dukkha, suffering, then the pain and suffering. But what they think they perceive is something pleasurable. So this is also a third way of, or the second way of thinking of this vipallasa. Something dukkha they perceive as sukha. So that is the second thing. The people, then we come to the third one. The people are not only consuming alcohol and drugs, but they adore and worship them as an idol. That we discussed that. They develop a strong dependency on alcohol and think that all the power for living comes from the substances. All the power gives to me from this substance use. That is how they perceive. After a certain point, what happened? Although he takes drugs, he feels that the drug has taken over his life. It is drug that has taken over my life, and I am innocent. So what happened? They make a kind of a self, a magic, a aura of some magical properties around substances. So they give some kind of a self or atma to the substances. So we can actually see this when we look at the ICD-10, the alcohol dependency syndrome, ICD-10 and 11. The ICD-10 has 6 central features, which are termed diagnostic guidelines, of which the presence of 3 or more occurring in a clustered way, typically over 12 months or more, is required for a diagnosis. The features are a strong desire or sense of compulsion to use alcohol. Now you can see, this is craving. which typically occurs after an initial amount, the prime dose they call, has been consumed. So the craving, the strong desire, the sense of compulsion of using. Then you can see the lobe part of the compulsion, the craving, the urge. Then the impaired capacity to control alcohol consumption in terms of its onset, termination, or levels of use. They have lost control. Now they think that the control is taken by the substance, alcohol. And they are innocent now, the substance taking me to certain directions. So that is their perception. They develop a self, right? Then the preoccupation with alcohol use as manifested by important pleasures or interest being given up or reduced, or a great deal of time spent on activities to obtain, use, or recover from the effects of alcohol. Okay, the salience of alcohol consumption. So that is another criteria explained in the ICD-10. So you can see the connection between the DSM-5 and the ICD-10. And once we scrutinize all these characteristics, symptoms, you can see how the craving part, the lobe part, is playing a vital role there. Then evidence of tolerance, which significantly increase the amounts need for the desired effect or diminish effects with the same amount. So the tolerance part, and we know that is also mind-made. Think about the gambling. So they had the same tolerance. That is actually mind-made, mostly mind-made. Let me say the mostly mind-made. Then the psychological withdrawal state when alcohol use is reduced or ceased, or the use of alcohol to relieve or avoid withdrawal discomforts. And so this the persistent alcohol use despite clear evidence of harmful consequences. All these shows the alcohol dependency. All alcohol dependency, and even for the other substance are the same. But you can see how the alcohol become magical for them. The substance become magical for them. So that is how they make kind of atma, or give some personality to the substances. So the alcohol dependence is defined in ICD-11 as a disorder of regulation of alcohol use arising from repeated or continuous use of alcohol. The characteristic feature is a strong internal drive to use alcohol, which is manifested by an impaired ability to control use, increased priority given to use over other activities, and persistence of use despite harm or negative consequences. These experiences are often accompanied by a subjective sensation or urge or craving to use alcohol. You can see how the craving comes. Even the ICD-11 recognize the craving part. The physiological features of dependence may also be present, including tolerance to the effect of alcohol. Now, they say the physiological part of tolerance, but we discuss the psychological part of tolerance, right? Withdrawal symptoms follow cessation or reduction in the use of alcohol, or repeated use of alcohol or pharmacologically similar substances to prevent or alleviate the withdrawal. So this is how they define when they go to diagnose the substance use or alcohol use disorder. When the alcohol or other drug comes to this stage, drug user comes to this stage, they are now fully dependent on the substance, and they have created a magic on the substance. So this is the state of dependence. In early days, we call it addiction. Okay, now say develop the SUD, AUD. He has created a permanent self in alcohol or drug. He considers everything is alcohol, which is a vipallasa or distortion of its true character. With this created dependence, individual always need more to get satisfaction and chase behind the substance. Looking at substance without biases and preconditions, and with the penetrative insight that is vipassana, later on we will discuss only may reveal that it is not alcohol that holds the individual, but the individual holds the alcohol. Though they think the alcohol comes and holds me. No, actually, they are holding the alcohol, they are holding the substances. Individual holds the drugs. Then they will understand that alcohol, the C2H5OH, the ethanol, is nothing but a dull or neutral chemical without any aura of power. And there is no permanent controller nature. There is no permanent controller nature in alcohol or drugs. That is the very important part. There is no Atma in alcohol or drugs. There is no controller nature in alcohol and drugs, because we have in our mind made such a concept. At least to a level of detaching from the substance they are attached to. So we know that there is no control nature of this. So the consumer, then we come to the consumers of alcohol and drugs, consider their consumption and the substance as subha. It is pure, beneficial, or attractive. People have misconceptions that alcohol, such as red wine, is good for health. Sometimes they toast with alcohol, such as a glass of whiskey or beer, wishing a good health. They wish good health through alcohol, right? Now just see the perversions, see the vipallasa, right? However, it is well established fact that alcohol, tobacco, and drug use are the main contributors to non-communicable diseases. Alcohol and drug use leads to poverty, social injustice, and impairment of happiness. And all of these are asubha or unattractive features. Valuing the bad or ugly asubha, alcohol and drug as subha is a perversion or vipallasa. So we discuss how the 4 types of perversions, so 4 types into 3, the Chitta Vipallasa, Sanya Vipallasa, and the Ditti Vipallasa. So altogether, it will come around 4 into 3, 12 kinds of Vipallasa. Okay, that is very well appropriate to explain how people get deceived for alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, including marijuana, heroin, methamphetamine, or any other pharmaceutical substances nowadays people use. So this comes to the end of the second presentation, based on the second chapter of the book, Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs. Our attempt is, we are trying to understand the addiction and prevention, right? Addiction treatment or alcohol SUD treatment, AUD treatment through Buddhist psychology. So we are still studying, we are still discussing the aetiology of substance use. Why do people use alcohol? And we got to know the part of craving, how the craving plays a vital role here, and how it leads to the substance use, the craving, the demand, and the created demand. So hope you get a kind of a idea about how we could use the learnings in Buddhist psychology in our prevention and treatment. So still it's premature to apply these things until that you understand it fully. Maybe that you are a practitioner in prevention and treatment, yet still you can continue the way. So after some episodes, you get to know about how we can get the components, the tools from Buddhist psychology into our prevention efforts and our treatment efforts. Anyway, the third episode also will be a continuation of studying the second chapter of the book, A Mind Liberated from Alcohol and Drugs. So hope you will continue listening to this and get a good understanding on the Buddhist psychology. So in this, you are learning, or you can understand the both alcohol and drug prevention, treatment, and on the other side, the Buddhist psychology. So both are very comprehensive areas in studies, but thank you very much for your courage to listen to this. So let us meet in the third episode, next episode also. Until such time, stay tuned. Thank you very much for listening to this session. Thank you.